When people talk about mass adoption in crypto, it almost feels like a slogan that gets tossed around every year. We've heard it since 2017, we heard it again during the DeFi boom of 2020, and then NFTs in 2021, and of course AI plus crypto in 2023. But here we are in 2025, and the truth is most projects are still struggling to move past speculation. They've got cool tech, they've got hype cycles, but are they actually building something that billions of people could use day to day? That's the real question. And that's where Hedera or HBAR steps into the conversation. Now, Hedera isn't your typical blockchain story. In fact, if we're being precise, it's not even technically a blockchain. It's a hash graph. And that alone sets it apart. Because while most crypto projects are fighting scalability battles with layer 2s, rollups, sidechains, and fragmented liquidity, Hedera came out of the gate saying, forget the chains, let's build a different kind of distributed ledger. Instead of stacking blocks, it uses a gossip about gossip protocol and virtual voting. Sounds super technical, but here's the takeaway. It's lightning fast, it's ridiculously cheap, and it's fair in a way that a lot of chains just aren't. Think about this. The average Hedera transaction fee is fractions of a cent. We're talking $0.0001. Not 10 cents, not $1, not $50 during peak gas wars like Ethereum. We're talking about a fraction of a cent. And that's not theoretical, that's live. You can test it today. For any kind of mass adoption, micropayments, gaming, creator economies, that's the holy grail. Because no matter how cool your Web3 app is, no one's paying $20 in fees to move a $1 asset. But beyond the tech, Hedera's vision has always been about trust. Look at their governance model. Unlike most projects where token whales or anonymous validators run the show, Hedera said, what if we create a council made up of some of the most recognized enterprises and institutions in the world? So you've got Google, IBM, Boeing, Dell, Standard Bank, and even LG sitting at the same table, literally running Hedera's nodes and shaping its roadmap. That's not something you see in crypto every day. Most projects scream decentralization but end up with shadowy insiders pulling the strings. Hedera flipped that. Its trust anchor is that it's being governed by publicly known, globally recognized organizations. Now, I know what you're thinking, but wait, doesn't that make it centralized? And yeah, that's been the debate. But here's the thing. In practice, Hedera's model is more decentralized than a chain with a handful of anonymous whales controlling consensus. It's transparent. You know who's governing. And the council members rotate, so no single company gets permanent control. For mainstream users, businesses, governments, NGOs, that level of predictability matters way more than the ideology of pure decentralization. So why does all this matter for mass adoption? Because if you're trying to bring Web3 to billions of people, whether it's through microtransactions, Web3 gaming, or tokenized real-world assets, you need infrastructure that's cheap, fast, secure, and, importantly, trusted by big players. Hedera ticks all those boxes. And let's be real. If we're talking mass adoption, we're talking about ordinary people who don't care about the tech jargon. They just want things to work. They don't want to hear about hash graphs, DAGs, or rollups. They want their payment to go through instantly. They want their in-game NFT to show up without a hiccup. They want to tip their favorite creator online without paying more in fees than the tip itself. That's where Hedera is positioning itself. Look at what's happening in 2025. Micropayments are back in the spotlight. With streaming platforms cracking down on ad revenue, creators are looking for direct support models. Imagine paying a cent or half a cent to unlock premium content, and the fee is practically zero. That's a use case Ethereum can't touch right now, and Bitcoin certainly can't. But Hedera? That's its bread and butter. Then you add gaming. Web3 gaming has been one of those next big things in crypto for years, but most chains either have gas fee nightmares or can't handle scale. Hedera is perfectly positioned here. Fast finality, low costs, easy tokenization through the Hedera token service. Developers don't want to deal with clogged networks or angry players complaining about $5 transaction costs just to upgrade a weapon in-game. Hedera gives them a smooth path. So here's the big picture. Mass adoption isn't about hype, it's about usability. It's about building systems that your mom, your neighbor, and your coworker can use without even realizing they're on blockchain or hashgraph technology. That's the Hedera vision. Not speculation, not meme coins, but infrastructure that scales quietly in the background while billions of transactions flow across it. And here's the kicker. If Hedera succeeds in this mission, HBAR, the token, naturally becomes more valuable. Not because of hype cycles, but because every single micropayment, every single NFT mint, every single gaming transaction, every single supply chain event, it all runs on HBAR. That's utility at scale. Another example, streaming. Everyone knows platforms like Spotify and YouTube dominate the space, but artists and creators have long complained about getting underpaid. Imagine a system where, instead of collecting ad money or subscription fees in bulk and redistributing them months later, you pay artists directly in real time, like a penny every 10 seconds of music streamed. Hedera makes that possible because the transaction fees are basically negligible. Try running that on Ethereum and your fee would be 50 times the value of the transaction. And then there's IoT, the Internet of Things. This is where micropayments could really explode. Imagine your electric car automatically paying for charging on the go, or your smart fridge negotiating the best deal on groceries and paying suppliers in tiny increments. Those machine-to-machine payments aren't going to be $50 at a time. They'll be fractions of a cent, thousands of times per second. Hedera, with its low latency and low costs, is tailor-made for that environment. Now let's zoom out a bit. Why haven't micropayments taken off elsewhere? The answer is simple. The infrastructure hasn't been there. Bitcoin's Lightning Network tried to solve this, and while it's a step in the right direction, adoption has been slow, and the user experience is still clunky. Ethereum, even with scaling solutions, just isn't cheap enough. And other chains? Either they're unproven, too volatile, or too centralized for enterprises to take seriously. Hedera stands out because it combines enterprise-grade reliability with costs so low they actually make micropayments viable. And here's the kicker. Micropayments aren't just a cool feature. They're a wedge into everyday life. Think about it. If you're using micropayments to unlock articles, to tip creators, to pay per minute for streaming, to automate IoT payments, you're not just experimenting with crypto, you're living it daily. That's what mass adoption looks like. Not people buying tokens and hoping they moon, but people using the network every single day without even realizing it's crypto under the hood. Let's not forget about the business side. Companies love predictability. One of the big selling points of Hedera is that its transaction fees are predictable and stable. You don't have to worry about gas fees spiking because of network congestion or meme coin madness. A business that wants to roll out a global micropayment system can plan ahead knowing the fees will stay tiny and stable. That's huge for adoption. No CFO wants to explain why the company spent $1,000 in fees to process $100 worth of transactions. And of course, micropayments aren't just about money, they're about data. With Hedera, you can build models where every interaction online has value. Every like, every view, every engagement can carry a tiny transaction. That creates entirely new business models. Imagine social networks where instead of selling your data to advertisers, you get paid directly for your engagement. Micropayments make that possible. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you combine micropayments with Hedera's speed and fairness, you get opportunities no other network can realistically handle. Let's say you're a game developer and you want to implement microtransactions for in-game assets, like charging fractions of a cent to upgrade a character, unlock skins, or use premium moves. On Hedera, that's seamless. Players don't even think about the cost because it's so small, and developers don't have to worry about transaction fees eating into revenue. That's a game changer, literally. And let's not underestimate the psychology of micropayments. People are more willing to pay tiny amounts frequently than big amounts occasionally. That's why subscription fatigue is such a thing right now. Everyone's tired of $10 here, $15 there, multiplied across dozens of services. Micropayments flip that by letting people pay only for what they use when they use it. It's flexible, it's fair, and it's powered by tech that finally makes it practical. To wrap this up, micropayments aren't just a cool niche use case for Hedera. They're the Trojan horse for mainstream adoption. Because once people get comfortable using crypto to pay fractions of a cent for everyday things, whether it's content, music, ads, or even machines talking to machines, that's when crypto stops being crypto and just becomes the fabric of the internet economy. And Hedera? It's already laying down the tracks for that future. When you think about gaming, especially Web3 gaming, one word comes to mind: scale. Millions of players logging in at once, trading items, upgrading characters, and making in-game purchases nonstop. For most blockchains, that kind of load is a nightmare. Fees skyrocket, networks slow down, and the player experience suffers. But Hedera? It was practically built for this. With its high throughput, fast finality, and fees that are literally fractions of a cent, Hedera gives game developers something they've been begging for: infrastructure that doesn't get in the way. We're already seeing early examples on Hedera. Hashpack Wallet has become a hub for NFTs and in-game assets, making it easy for players to buy, store, and trade items. Projects are experimenting with tokenized collectibles and event-based rewards, where players can earn NFTs just by participating. And because Hedera's fees are so low, developers can build systems where rewards are handed out automatically without worrying about costs eating into the experience. Another big angle is fairness. Hedera's consensus model is designed to prevent network congestion from giving certain players an advantage. In gaming, where milliseconds matter, that's huge. No one wants to lose because their transaction lagged. With Hedera, every action is timestamped and ordered fairly, which levels the playing field. And let's not forget crossovers. Imagine a player unlocking an item in one game and then using or selling it in another, thanks to Hedera's token standard. That's the Web3 dream: interoperability. It hasn't fully arrived yet, but Hedera is putting the rails in place for when it does. So when we talk about Web3 gaming, Hedera isn't just another option. It's one of the few networks that can actually handle the scale and economics required. If gaming is going to bring millions of people into Web3, Hedera has a real shot at being the backbone. When we talk about Hedera and mass adoption, gaming and micropayments are the obvious stars of the show. But there's another arena where Hedera has been quietly building momentum: NFTs, dApps, and the broader creator economy. And honestly, this might be one of the most exciting frontiers for Hedera because it taps into something universal: people creating, sharing, and owning digital value. Let's start with NFTs. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aren't NFTs dead? And to be fair, the 2021 hype bubble did a number on their reputation. The overpriced JPGs, the rug pulls, the get-rich-quick culture. It left a bad taste in a lot of mouths. But here's the thing. The NFT concept was never the problem. Ownership of digital assets, be it art, music, tickets, collectibles, that's a powerful idea. What failed was the infrastructure: high minting costs, insane gas fees, and networks that couldn't scale. That's where Hedera quietly built an advantage. On Hedera, minting an NFT doesn't cost hundreds of dollars. Costs pennies. And that's a game changer for creators who aren't millionaires or big-name brands. If you're an independent artist trying to sell your digital artwork, you don't want to drop $200 in fees before you've even made a sale. Hedera makes it cheap, fast, and reliable. That lowers the barrier to entry and opens the door for a whole new class of creators. And it's not just about art. Think about ticketing. Concert tickets, sports events, conferences. These are all plagued by scalping, fraud, and middlemen taking huge cuts. NFTs on Hedera could solve that. Every ticket is unique, verifiable, and transferable in real time. And because fees are tiny, event organizers can issue thousands or millions of tickets without worrying about costs. That's practical utility, something the NFT market desperately needs. Now let's zoom out to dApps, the decentralized apps being built on Hedera. The Hedera Token Service, HTS, has been a huge enabler here. It allows developers to create custom tokens, whether fungible or non-fungible, easily and cheaply. That means apps ranging from DeFi platforms to loyalty programs to supply chain tools can issue and manage tokens without the headaches of traditional blockchains. And again, it comes back to low fees. When you're trying to build a business, you don't want unpredictable costs. Hedera gives you stability. One area that really excites me is the creator economy. We live in an era where creators, whether they're musicians, writers, YouTubers, or TikTokers, are driving culture. But the platforms they rely on, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, take huge cuts and control the rules of engagement. Hedera opens the door to new models where creators own their content, tokenize it, and get paid directly by fans. Micropayments tie into this too. Fans can tip a fraction of a cent, and creators actually receive it instantly. No waiting weeks for payouts. No platform skimming 40%. And here's a real kicker. NFTs and micropayments can blend. Imagine a musician who sells NFTs as access passes to exclusive content. Fans not only buy the NFT once but also pay tiny streaming fees directly as they listen. It creates a steady income flow for the artist and a deeper connection with the fanbase. That's what the Web3 creator economy looks like, and Hedera is one of the few networks where the economics actually work. Of course, there are challenges. NFTs still have an image problem, and most people outside of crypto still don't fully get them. But Hedera's path forward isn't about hype. It's about utility. Tickets, memberships, collectibles, creator tools. These are use cases that actually make sense to everyday people. And when they experience it without the friction of high fees or clunky wallets, that's when adoption sticks. So, if we tie it all together, Hedera's NFTs, dApps, and creator economy aren't about chasing the next hype wave. They're about building practical tools for everyday creators and users. Cheap minting, instant payments, sustainable infrastructure, and a path to true ownership. That's what separates Hedera from chains that are still stuck in speculation mode. In other words, Hedera isn't trying to make NFTs cool again. It's making them useful. And in the long run, usefulness always wins. When you zoom out and look at Hedera's journey so far, it's hard not to feel like we're still in the opening chapters of the story. The technology is solid, the partnerships are credible, and the use cases, ranging from tokenized assets to supply chain tracking, are genuinely exciting. But the question everyone really wants answered is, where does HBAR go from here? The road ahead for HBAR will depend on one key factor: real-world adoption. Hedera has already proven that it can deliver on speed, scalability, and low fees. But blockchain history has taught us that the best tech doesn't always win. It's the ecosystem with the strongest network effect that usually dominates. That means Hedera has to keep onboarding enterprises, governments, NGOs, and retail users until it reaches critical mass. Every new integration, every new use case, and every new user moves the needle closer to that tipping point. Another important piece of the puzzle is narrative. Right now, Hedera doesn't have the same cultural presence as Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even Solana. But this could actually work in its favor. Unlike meme-driven hype cycles, Hedera's growth narrative is built on utility and credibility. As more projects go live, whether it's in DeFi, digital identity, carbon tracking, or tokenization, Hedera can carve out a reputation as the serious network where business actually gets done. Think of it as the quiet but reliable infrastructure play, rather than the loud speculative one. Of course, risks remain. Regulation is still a wild card, and the competition in this space is brutal. If Ethereum rolls out smoother scalability solutions, or if Solana captures even more of the DeFi and gaming crowd, Hedera will have to fight harder for relevance. But Hedera's unique Hashgraph tech and enterprise-first approach give it a competitive moat that most blockchains simply can't replicate. So, how high can HBAR realistically go? Some optimists will tell you the sky's the limit, while skeptics might argue it'll never crack mainstream adoption. The truth is probably somewhere in between. If Hedera can keep expanding partnerships, land a few breakout apps, and ride the inevitable next wave of institutional crypto adoption, HBAR could position itself as one of the most valuable infrastructure tokens of the decade. It may not make the loudest headlines every week, but sometimes the quiet builders end up creating the foundations everyone else relies on. The bottom line, Hedera is not just another crypto project. It's an experiment in building a more efficient, fair, and sustainable digital economy. And if it succeeds, HBAR holders today could be sitting on one of the most underappreciated plays in the market. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into Hedera's future, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel where we break down HBAR. No hype, no fluff, just real insights to help you stay ahead of the crypto curve. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, comment how much HBAR you are holding, and join the community that's always one step ahead.